Luis Enrique and Chelsea. The story of what could have been and what is really happening. Now, let us be honest for a second. How many times have you sat down, scrolled through your phone, and read a headline saying, Chelsea are about to sign the next big manager, only for the whole thing to fall apart before the week is even over? If you have been a Chelsea supporter, or even just a follower of the club for the last few years, you already know this feeling very well. It is almost like a cycle at this point. A manager comes, a manager goes, and then the search begins all over again. But right now, in May 2026, there is a name floating around once more that keeps coming up whenever people talk about who Chelsea should bring in. That name is Luis Enrique. And the story behind this name and Chelsea is honestly one of the more interesting stories in modern football. It has drama, it has missed chances, it has regret, and most importantly for you right now, it has a very clear answer about what is actually happening in 2026. So let us sit down and really go through all of this together. Where did the Luis Enrique and Chelsea link come from? What happened back in 2023? What has he done since then? And most importantly, is he actually coming to Stamford Bridge this summer? Let us break it all down in a way that makes sense. How this all started. To understand where we are today, you need to go back to April 2023. Chelsea had just sacked Graham Potter after only 7 months in charge. The club was in a difficult place and needed a new manager quickly. The owners at Blueco were looking around at the available options, and one name that came up very fast was Luis Enrique. At the time, Luis Enrique had just finished his job as the head coach of the Spanish national team. Spain had gone out at the World Cup in Qatar, and he left his role shortly after. That meant he was free, available, and ready to work. He is a manager with a seriously impressive record. He won the treble with Barcelona back in 2014 and 2015, picking up the league title, the Copa del Rey, and the Champions League all in one season. He also took Spain to a World Cup semi-final and a Nations League final. This is not a manager who is short on credentials. So when Chelsea came calling, it made a lot of sense on paper. Reports confirmed that Luis Enrique actually flew to London to hold talks with the Chelsea hierarchy. Think about that for a second. The man got on a plane, came to London, sat down with the club, and talked about the possibility of taking over at Stamford Bridge. There were reports that he went as far as presenting his full vision for the club, including a detailed presentation of how he planned to work and what he wanted to build. That is a serious level of interest and commitment. You do not fly to London and put together a full presentation if you are not genuinely interested in the job. So what went wrong? Why did it not happen? The 2023 rejection. What really happened? This is where things get a little murky and honestly a little frustrating depending on how you look at it. There were different stories going around at the time about why Chelsea and Luis Enrique did not end up working together. Some reports said that Chelsea had concerns about the language barrier. Luis Enrique is Spanish and does not speak English fluently. The idea was that communication with the squad and the media in England might be a problem. Other reports said something slightly different. Those reports suggested that it was actually Enrique himself who decided to step away from the process. The suggestion was that when he looked at what Chelsea were offering and how they were going to work, he was not fully convinced it was the right fit for him. In the end, Chelsea moved on and eventually chose Mauricio Pochettino as their next manager. Pochettino was familiar with English football, having managed Tottenham for several years. He seemed like a safer choice in terms of communication and understanding of the Premier League. At the time, a lot of people accepted that decision and moved on. But looking back now, with everything that has happened since, many Chelsea supporters are asking a very different question. Was rejecting Luis Enrique or allowing him to walk away one of the biggest mistakes the club has made in recent years? It is a fair question. And to answer it properly, you need to look at what Enrique went on to do next. What Luis Enrique has done at PSG. In July 2023, just a couple of months after the Chelsea situation fell apart, Luis Enrique was announced as the new head coach of Paris Saint-Germain. At the time, some people were skeptical. PSG had been through many managers before him. The club was famous for spending enormous amounts of money, having world-class players, but always falling short in Europe. The feeling around French football was that PSG were a club that could not quite figure out how to turn individual talent into team success. Luis Enrique changed that. In his very first season at the club, he guided PSG to a domestic treble, winning Ligue 1, the Coupe de France, and also reaching the semi-finals of the Champions League. That alone was a significant step forward, but it was only the beginning. In his second season, things got even better. PSG went through the entire domestic league campaign without losing a single match in their first 28 games. They won the league with 6 matches still left to play. They retained the Coupe de France. And then, in the biggest achievement of all, they won the Champions League. They beat Inter Milan 5-0 in the final. 5-0. That is not a close match. That is a statement. PSG became the first French club in history to win the Champions League. Luis Enrique also became only the second manager ever to win the Champions League twice with 2 different clubs. The first man to do it was Otmar Hitzfeld. That is the company Enrique is now in. But wait, there is more. After winning the Champions League, PSG also reached the final of the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. They were going for 7 trophies in a single calendar year, which would have been something nobody had ever done before in the history of football. They lost that final 3-0, and the team that beat them was Chelsea. Yes, Chelsea beat PSG in the Club World Cup final. Then, in April 2026, Luis Enrique secured his 50th Champions League win as a manager. He reached that milestone in just 77 matches, breaking the previous record that had been set by Pep Guardiola. Think about that for a moment. He broke Guardiola's record. So here you have a manager who, since leaving Chelsea's radar in 2023, has won the Champions League, broken records, and turned PSG into a genuine European powerhouse. The questions those Chelsea supporters are asking are completely understandable. What would Chelsea look like right now if they had chosen him back then instead of walking away? Chelsea's managerial chaos in the same period. While Luis Enrique was building something special in Paris, what was happening at Chelsea? The club went through Mauricio Pochettino, who left at the end of the 2023 to 2024 season. Then came Enzo Maresca, who was brought in with a lot of excitement and hope. Maresca did not last either, leaving the club in January 2026. He was replaced by Rosenior, who had been doing good work at Strasbourg in France and was seen as an exciting young coaching talent. Rosenior lasted about 3 months. After 5 straight defeats, Chelsea sacked him as well. And now, in May 2026, the club is once again searching for a permanent manager. This is the 8th different manager Chelsea have had since Blue Co took over the club in 2022. 8 managers in roughly 4 years. That is an extraordinary number. It is no wonder that reporters and supporters alike have been asking hard questions about the direction of the club. Sky Sports chief reporter Kaveh Solhekol recently wrote a long piece about Chelsea's situation that did not hold back when it came to pointing out the problems. But he also said something interesting and important, which we will come back to shortly. The fact remains that Chelsea have had 5 different sporting directors and 8 different managers since 2022. That level of change and instability is very difficult for any club to overcome. Players cannot settle into a system when the system keeps changing. Young players cannot develop properly when there is a new coaching philosophy every 6 months. And supporters cannot build any kind of connection or excitement around the team when everything keeps getting reset. Is Luis Enrique coming to Chelsea in 2026? Now we get to the question that brought you here. You may have seen headlines or social media posts in May 2026 suggesting that Luis Enrique is a candidate for the Chelsea job following Rosenior's departure. Some posts have framed him as a front runner or a serious contender. Here is the honest truth based on the most up-to-date and reliable reporting available. Luis Enrique is not coming to Chelsea. According to journalist Ben Jacobs, who is one of the most reliable reporters when it comes to Chelsea news, Enrique did hold talks with Chelsea about the vacant position. But the two parties were not aligned. They could not agree on the terms or the vision or whatever else it was that needed to be agreed upon. And then came the news that really closed the door completely. Luis Enrique has agreed to sign a new contract extension at PSG that will keep him at the club until 2030. Until 2030, he is not leaving Paris. He is committed to continuing the project he has built there. After winning the Champions League and breaking records, why would he leave? So while there are still articles and posts circulating that frame him as a Chelsea target, the reality is that this particular door has closed. The Ben Jacobs update, which is the most credible and up-to-date information available, is clear on this point. Luis Enrique will not be the next Chelsea manager. Do you find it frustrating that this information has not stopped some outlets from continuing to push the story? It is worth keeping in mind that not every article you see about Chelsea's manager search is based on the latest verified information. Who is Chelsea actually looking at? With Luis Enrique ruled out and Thomas Tuchel also unavailable because he is focused on managing the England national team ahead of the World Cup, Chelsea's search has become very wide open. The club has admitted that the sudden and unplanned sacking of Rosenior left them without any kind of formal shortlist ready to go. They are essentially starting from scratch. This opens up the field to a range of different candidates. Some names that have been mentioned in the discussion include Cesc Fabregas, the former Chelsea and Arsenal midfielder who has been building a managerial career. He did impressive work at Como in Italy and is seen as one of the most promising young coaches in Europe. However, the concern with Fabregas is that this might be too big a job for where he is right now in his development as a manager. Chelsea have a massive squad, enormous expectations, and no stability at the moment. Putting a relatively inexperienced manager into that environment could be setting everyone up to fail. Chelsea are also reported to be looking at other candidates, though no confirmed shortlist has been made public at the time of writing. Kaveh Solhikol's piece for Sky Sports made an interesting and important point about what kind of manager Chelsea need right now. His view, and many supporters would agree with this, is that Chelsea needs someone who has Premier League experience and who can come in and be a leader, someone who can bring character and personality to the dressing room and make sense of the very large and very talented squad that has been assembled at Stamford Bridge. The comparison that hurts Chelsea fans. There is one comparison floating around that a lot of Chelsea supporters find genuinely painful, and it is worth addressing it directly here. The point that people keep making is this. Back in 2023, Luis Enrique came to London, met with Chelsea, and reportedly laid out his entire vision for the club in a detailed presentation. He showed them exactly what he wanted to build, and Chelsea said no, or walked away, or were not aligned. However you want to describe it, the outcome was the same. Enrique left without the job. Since that moment, he has gone to PSG and done something extraordinary. He has won the Champions League, broken records, made history, and turned a club that was always the nearly men of European football into genuine continental champions. And Chelsea, in the same period, have gone through manager after manager after manager without ever finding any real stability or identity. It is the kind of comparison that makes you sit back and really think about the decisions being made at the club. If a manager comes to you with a clear vision, a proven record, and an obvious desire to take on your project, and you let him walk away, what does that say about your decision-making process? To be fair, nobody knew in 2023 exactly how things would unfold. Pochettino was a respected manager with Premier League experience. The decision to go with him was not unreasonable on paper, but results have a way of showing you what might have been, and the results of the last 3 years make it very hard to look at the 2023 decision with anything other than a sense of what might have been, what Solhikal said, and why it matters. Let us go back to that Kaveh Solhekol piece for a moment, because it contains something genuinely hopeful for Chelsea supporters who are feeling tired and frustrated right now. Solhekol acknowledged everything that is wrong at the club. He did not pretend things are fine or that the problems are small. He said openly that it is open season on Chelsea right now and that the fans are unhappy, and that is completely understandable. He gets it. He is not dismissing what supporters are feeling. But then he said something worth holding on to. He said that if Chelsea get the right manager in, and if they make a couple of smart signings of experienced players with character and leadership qualities, then he thinks Chelsea will be back soon. He was willing to put his reputation on it by saying things can turn around very quickly. He pointed to the example of Manchester United, where it only took one good transfer window and one positive manager change to make a significant difference. Could Chelsea have the same kind of turnaround? That is the hope. It is not guaranteed. Nothing in football is guaranteed, and especially not at Chelsea right now. But the point stands that this club has the resources, the squad depth, and the potential to be competitive again. The question is whether the owners and the decision makers can finally get the key decisions right. And the most important decision right now is the manager. What this means for Chelsea going forward. So where does all of this leave us? Chelsea are, as of May 2026, searching for their ninth manager since Blueco took over. Luis Enrique is not available. Thomas Tuchel is not available. The club is looking at a new generation of candidates and has no confirmed shortlist in place. The mood around the club is not great. 5 straight defeats before Rosenior was sacked, supporters who are openly unhappy, and a genuine sense of uncertainty about where the club is heading. That is the reality. But here is the other part of the reality. Chelsea have a very large and talented squad. They have money to spend in the transfer market. They have a stadium upgrade in progress. They beat PSG in the Club World Cup final in 2025, which shows that on their best days, they can compete with and beat the best teams in the world. The problem has not been the players, at least not entirely. The problem has been instability, constant change, and the inability to build anything over a sustained period of time. A new manager who comes in and is given proper time and support could genuinely change the picture. Whether the owners are willing to provide that time and support is the real question, because that is the pattern that has to change. Sacking managers after 3 months, after 6 months, after a year, and then starting all over again is not a path that leads anywhere good. Every top club that has turned their situation around has done so by finding the right person and then sticking with them through the difficult moments. Chelsea will need to do the same thing. Whoever comes in next cannot be seen as a temporary fix or someone who buys the owner's time before the real appointment is made. That person needs to be trusted, given resources, and allowed to build. A final thought. Here is something to sit with as you close this article. Luis Enrique once said that he would only consider working at a club that wants to win. That was his standard. He was not interested in projects that were not serious about competing for the biggest prizes. Chelsea, on paper, absolutely fit that description. They have ambition, they have money, they have a squad that should be challenging for trophies. And yet, the way the club has been run over the last 4 years has not always reflected a serious, coherent plan to win. The irony is that the manager who once said he only works with clubs that want to win is now at PSG, winning everything in sight, while Chelsea are searching for their 9th manager and hoping someone can finally bring some order to the chaos at Stamford Bridge. That is not a knock on Chelsea as a club or on the supporters who have been through so much these last few years. It is just a reflection of how football works sometimes. The right person and the right club do not always find each other at the right time. The hope for Chelsea is that the right person is out there and that this time the club gets the decision right. Not just any appointment, but the right one. One that is given time to grow and develop into something real. Kaveh Solhekol said things can turn around very quickly if the right decisions are made. A lot of Chelsea supporters are holding on to that thought right now, and if you are one of them, you are not wrong to do so. This club has come back from difficult moments before. It can do it again. The question is whether the people making the decisions are finally ready to make the right ones. What do you think? Do you believe Chelsea will finally find the stability they need with their next managerial appointment? And looking back at 2023, do you think walking away from Luis Enrique was the biggest missed opportunity of the Blueco era so far? Share your thoughts and let the community know where you stand.